Hello, my name is Joseph McDonald, and today I have a very important message for you. This message stands in very firm contrast to bank-owned media and corrupt elements of public office. This message is only possible because of the great heroes working very hard to be transparent about the crimes of others in the past and moving forward, and the great heroes that are spreading the good word, the love of God and Spirit, and the practice of unconditional love, non-judgmental freedom for all, transparency, and cooperation. I'm responsible as a leader and role model for my community, myself, my families around me, and it's important that I stand firm in my message and allow all those to give themselves an opportunity to have a voice as well, because that is very important. I have many roles within society, and I'm just going to list a few for you, so that you understand that I believe in myself and this message in all of those roles, and I hope you too have the opportunity to be one face rather than the many faces that we are all forced to wear in the modern time. Anyway, I am an owner of Love Profit Consulting, Joe Company Consulting. I do sales for Maplecrest Tree Services. I'm a marketing affiliate for Zio's Italian Comfort Food. I do sales for Cool Mule Poker. I am a Lightbearer of the Lightbearers Association of Canada. I'm a philanthropist with my Clean Water Initiative Fund. I'm a Canadian citizen and a citizen of the human race. And among all of those, the message is clear that we need to stand up for what is right and denounce what is wrong. This is very important, because if we do not stand, we will not be taken serious and we will not be accounted in the final tolling of future implementations. So I've been provided enough evidence over the last 6 months beyond a reasonable doubt to suggest the blatant criminal actions of governments around the world, not all of them, some of them, to the disadvantage of their citizens through corrupt measures that infringe upon rights and freedoms through the guise of the term COVID. I'm not saying there isn't a COVID. I'm saying that COVID is a facade for criminal actions through special interest groups. So people have died of COVID, but in the long and the short of it, the epidemiologists seem to agree that COVID is little more mathematically for a healthy immune system than the common cold or a common flu. Severity being more intense for those that have weakened immunes and other medical complications, of course. Those people, of course, my heart goes out, but everyone needs to be accountable for their own health, because when we lose accountability, as we have done, nobody wins, except for those that wanted no accountability because they wanted cleanliness from their actions. Anyway, moving forward, the greatest protection is natural protection. So building your immune to be strong and healthy, diverse, by eating good organic vegetables, teas, use of probiotics, all of those things can help build you a really good, active, strong, unified immune system. But the way that we treat ourselves is extremely important. So you have to always be very loving and grateful to yourself to further illustrate the active implementation of a healthy immune system. If you read the Nuremberg Code, informed consent, and the Charter of Rights of Freedoms, the mandates put resulting from COVID-19 are fascist. They are corrupt beyond a reasonable doubt. It's disgusting that in rural areas with zero active COVID cases, people are bullying, harassing each other for the use of masks, which are not a good idea for the healthy, as we've in the community known for a long time. And as well, if you read what hand sanitizer is and what it is, and you understand what it is, it's poison and it actively kills biological beings. So only if you have reason to believe that you have a bad biological component on your body should you even consider using hand sanitizer. To use it on a healthy person is a really bad idea, really unethical, and I can't believe how far they've pushed to hurt, harm, weaken your immune, to put you out of work, to take your jobs, take your business, take your operations and your rights and freedoms. It's criminal. It is criminal. And I'm standing very firm in that message. I can't tolerate it, and I hope that you can't either, and I hope this message helps you stand up as well for what you believe is right and what you believe is wrong. I'm saying very clearly, I believe that the active measures put in by what I would call a very corrupt government, there needs to be accountability. Accountability is really important. So even if we said it's legal to manipulate people into self-harm and it's legal to use eugenics, which is the manipulation of DNA, it's not right. It's not right. I don't care if it's legal. It's not right. We need at least informed consent to manipulate people into hurting themselves and to alter their DNA without their consent, without their understanding. Like, it's ridiculous. And so I really hope these war criminals can look in the mirror and say, hey, I messed up and I need to look for transparency and forgiveness. Because that's the only way. You're getting a clean slate at this point in the game. Some of these people have intentionally harmed millions of people, and that number is only getting higher over time when no one does anything. So it's important that we stand up for what we believe is right, and we make it very clear what we understand is wrong. So we talked about accountability already a little bit. I want to talk about it again. So the people that designed these biological warfare, let's just say it like that, they need to be held accountable. Those that planned the distribution of biological warfare, they need to be held accountable. It's ridiculous that we allowed this to happen, and we have no accountability for that. What the media wants to push on you is accountability of self, without taking accountability for itself. So therefore, the message is totally wonk and corrupt as can be, and I really hope that people can take their accountability and move forward. Likewise for you, I can't any longer be accountable for being criminally compliant. I need to be free from criminal compliance. I'm not wearing a mask without my intention to do so. No amount of someone else's prescription about flawed scientific practice should change my implementation of legitimate medical science. Anyway, I don't encourage compliance at all, because as I've demonstrated, there's a lot of bad things going on. I'm not compliant to be vaccinated, to be polluted by chemtrails, to surrender my body, my health, mind, soul, consciousness, my freedoms, my freedom of association. All of those, I reserve those rights. And I hope that you can reserve those rights as well, because they're all extremely important. And we'd be kidding if we think that we're safe to just give those things away. We're not, because the more we give away, the more will be intended to be taken from us. I also reject depopulation agendas as implemented through improper water treatment, improper citizen treatment, corrupt corporate mandates. I reject forced taxation, slavery, war, violence, hate, discrimination, bullying, racism, sexism, ageism, torture, human trafficking, sex trafficking, and pedophilia. It is not right to take babies, torture them, rape them, and then get away scot-free through the legal system. That is a joke. That puts all the legal intention of good and throws it in the trash for criminals. And I won't accept it, and I hope you don't accept it either. So it's important that you stand very firm in your beliefs as well, within your community, within your circles, your social, business, all of it. I want you to stand very firm about what you believe is right, what you believe is wrong, and I want you to self-implement, and I want you to practice and teach that through leading by example. I think those things are very important that we all address, because there's no accountability going on. I mean, you could say that it's happening, you could say there's indictments, all you want. I say the proof is in the proof. Let's get some proof moving, and I can only control from myself out into my community. That's all I get. I can't sue every single person, I can't arrest every single person, but I do want to emotionally, socially, and professionally protect people so that they are no longer violated by corrupt criminal policy. as sold to us by the media, banks, pharmaceutical industries, anybody. I don't care who's doing it. I don't even need to place blame, but we need transparency, accountability, and then we need to move forward with unconditional love, transparency, and cooperation. We breathe air, and when we breathe our air into a mask, guess where all that air is trapped? It's right there. So that's all your biological little enzymes are now in your mask. And I've seen way too many examples of that harming people. And the reality is, I would say the media has harmed people more than COVID-19 on the same topic. And therefore there needs to be accountability there. But this is where we're at right now. And soon we will be in another day and another day. And each day I'm pushing to move society into a better future. And I hope that you can say that you're doing the same. And you will not do that by being criminally compliant. You will do that by being responsible for yourself and your wellness. I would prefer if you avoided wearing a mask if you were healthy. I would prefer if you avoided removing your biological self from your hands through the use of sanitizer, unless you believe it to be valuable to you. You've probably found by using too much sanitizer, you were hurting yourself. You were hurting yourself even when you were using the prescribed amount, because it is poison. You could read the bottle. If you drink it, you could die because it is poison. I wouldn't recommend it. Only in an event where you were actively exposed to a biological contaminant that concerned you should you sanitize your hand from that contaminant. The truth is, as someone with a healthy, active immune system, if I see someone with a weak immune system, I am in no concern to be in their proximity, because I know that my immune can fight off what their immune cannot. And I also know that my healthy immune actually influences and teaches their immune to be better by being in proximity and by exchanging biological elements. You'll get there one day if you're not there already. I use my platform and voice to speak as clearly and as loudly to as many people as I possibly can. Again, listing my roles within society. You could say I'm important, you could say I'm not. I really don't mind. I'm important to myself and those that care to listen to me. And therefore, I have the power to give you voice and give you an opportunity to speak your truth, as I am doing right now. This is my truth. And I won't tell you about how your truth is implemented. I totally prescribe freedom and implementation of self. So if you say, hey, I want to wear a mask, I will not judge you for that. But I would recommend a full protection mask rather than a cloth mask, which cannot even reduce the distribution of nanoparticles. Particles being so small that they just go right through the mask. Like, it's a joke that people have been mandated to wear cloth masks. You're hurting yourself and you're being criminally compliant. Please consider educating yourself to a greater level of mask or a greater level of awareness of COVID-19 through the use of ethical, socially available epidemiologists. Epidemiologists being those that study the distribution of viruses. Only in a corrupt world does one have to fight corruption. That's exactly what I'm doing with this video. I love you. I appreciate you. I thank you for listening. I even thank you for any adversity you might have to my truth and my message. You are all loved. Even if I conditionally hate you, I unconditionally love you. And so I am always there to help you to be your best self. Thank you so much. Blessings to all. Have a fantastic day.